Thank you. Yes, great to be here. And I didn't feel like it on a Sunday morning quite so much. What am I doing like something like this on a Sunday night? But actually here, hearing different views and seeing different faces in the audience, it's great to get outside of my normal bubble. I work for a Centre for Ageing Better. We're one of the government What Works centres. We try to get under the skin of the evidence about what it's like to grow old in this country today, and how we can help more people now and in the future have a good later life. So I'm just going to talk quickly about the kind of this definitional stuff around generations. A lot of the nuance has been picked up by my fellow passengers, sorry, kind of on this journey that we can call this panelists. There we go. Is it helpful? I think is the most important question. And then a couple of ideas about how I think we can do something about it. So first of all, I kind of get people to sort of, when you talk about the intergenerational, thinking about generations, the nuance, what we're talking about, we kind of, when you get a bit closer, we'll be talking about a cohort of people who shared and grew up in a similar age. A huge lump of people that share similar characteristics just by dint of being that age. Well, that I think has some problems, and Pew has picked that up. It's like at what day on what year do you suddenly tip over into becoming a Zoomer? So we know there are issues around that, but I'm not saying that there aren't ways of defining it. Or are we talking about things which are actually about changes that happen as we go through life, characteristics that are built on the fact that as we grow older, our views may change, and that we are talking about things that when the Zoomers today, when they hit 60, 70, 80, will have similar changes in their characteristics. So there's a nuance there. And then the other one is kind of peer effects. So we talked about COVID. You could say one of the war and post-war period. And I'm going to talk a little bit about capitalism, like events, things that happen that influence people of different ages. So the characteristics there. So when you're talking about generational characteristics, think what you're talking about and where it comes from. So I think that's why kind of treatise there, I suppose. And then the other thing I was going to talk about is it helpful? And I don't think it's helpful academically, helpful for us interest, sometimes helpful for politicians and for the media to be able to divide people and box them up and say people are like this, people are not like that. But actually older people are the most diverse. As you grow older, you become more different from your peers. They're the most diverse generations. There are many more differences within a generation than there are between a generation. And one of the ways that particularly shows up is around wealth. Very often we're talking about old. People say old when they mean wealthy. And actually the gap in wealth within generations, older generations, is much greater than the gap in wealth between younger and older. You are poor and old, you have fewer prospects and a worse life than if you are old and rich, and the difference is marked. And I'll just pick up my thing. So what else was I going to say about that? So I think that the other key thing around that kind of wealth divide is the kind of the system that goes behind that. As we grow older, we accumulate. We accumulate advantage. We also accumulate disadvantage. And so the gaps in life expectancy is stalling. Healthy life expectancy, that's the number of years you can expect to live without a health condition or a disability, is going backwards. And that is particularly the case for groups of disadvantaged older people. So the inequalities are growing for those people. If you are a poorer Bangladeshi woman, you are likely to get a health condition 30 years before your white, wealthy counterpart. 30 years. So actually, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about age, we're talking about inequalities. And we are talking about the expansion, largely through capitalism and the way we value wealth. And that actually the older people and boomers have gone through a process where if you were lucky, you started off with a little bit, that was able to grow. If you started off with nothing, that has got worse. So I think we need to really think what we're talking about and don't just talk paint. The vast majority of pension poverty is growing as well in this country. So don't just kind of talk about people in their book clubs and they're wealthy and their big houses, because yes, that is true for some, but for other people, they're sitting in private rented sector accommodation for the rest of their life and trying to figure out how to get the heating on that winter. And I was really pleased to see the backlash against that, right? If the government could have we've got a situation with the fuel poverty allowance being taken away, that we actually have the most vulnerable older people having to apply through pension credit to get that allowance and not thinking up a process which those who don't need it could apply to get it back. So I just ask for people to think a little bit about that. So then the final one is, what do we do about it? So for me, if we're talking about it being helpful for social justice, which is what I'm interested in, and change, and I think many of you will be here, is that yes, contact. It's always good when it comes to division, more contact, more time, generations spent together, recognizing the community and family bonds, but also solidarity, because we have more in common than divides us. The evidence suggests older people act on and care about climate change just as much as younger generations. Private sector, as I said, private rented sector, people living in private rented sector accommodation in older age is growing. There is solidarity there. If you were to walk different groups of people around a housing estate, it is older women and young girls who feel most afraid of the same parts of their urban environment. There is solidarity, and we can create change if we actually look for what we've got in common, not what divides us. So that's my...
Thank you, Natalie.